Good day, everyone. I am Majie and Mangao from BSed Social Studies 2, and I am going to discuss the topic about medieval East Asia, specifically the Confucian Korea. So, let's start. So, today, the legacy of Confucianism remains a fundamental part of Korean society, shaping the moral system, the way of life, the social relations between old and young, the high culture, and is the basis for much of the legal system. So, Confucianism in Korea is sometimes considered a pragmatic way, holding a nation together without the civil wars and internal dissent that were inherited from the Goryeo dynasty. So let's begin with the Silla at the extreme south of Korean Peninsula. So Silla during the um, medieval era, so it was a typical aristocratic state with a weak monarchy. So warfare was account for the arrangement, and an independent peasantry subject as China to taxation, labor duties, and military services comprised the largest section of society, but warfare had reduced its number and lowered its status. So also villages formed the basis of the kingdom, each under the authority of headmen, and high officials live in towns or cities, but the adoption of Confucianism never gave the Korean ruler the authority of a Chinese emperor. So sila in this era had an aristocratic system which has consisted of certain noble families and societies most wealthy, so rather than those of intellectual or those have with moral prowess. So marami ding kaguluhan, warfare sa panahon ito dahil military and laborers ang pinakamalaking bumubuo sa bahagi ng kanilang lipunan, ko saan dahil nga sa mga warfare na kinakaharap nila, kinabibilangan ng mga ito, is nagiging dahilan ito para bumaba yung bilang at katayuan ng mga nasabing specific sector ng lipunan na ito. So, dahil aristocratic system or form of government ang mayroon sila, yung mga villages ay mayroon iisa lamang na namumuno sa lahat ng iyon. But those officials only lived in towns or cities. So, kahit naman or bakit nga ba hindi the Chinese emperors never gave the authority to the Korean ruler yung pag-implement or pamumuna ng sa Confucianism teachings and beliefs? So it is because of the imported bureaucratic titles defined hereditary privileges rather than describe official functions. So next is the bone rank system. So, bone rank system clearly reflects the structure of an aristocratic society. So, before that, what is the bone rank system? So, it was a system of aristocratic rank used in the ancient Korean kingdom of Silla. So, it was used to segregate society and particularly the layers of the aristocracy on the basis of their hereditary proximity to the throne and the level of authority they were permitted to wield. So, the ideal to royal blood in other societies is a close analog to the idea of sacred bone in Silla thought. So, true bone ay yung was reserved for the royal house of Kim and close relatives. So, true bone or jingle is the members of the that could hold any official position up to the level of full minister. They could also attain the office rank of the up to the highest or Ebo-chan after the sacred bone rank was abolished. So next to the true bone is the hard to get. So the aristocracy held several lower ranks. So the head ranks, of which only the 6th, 5th, and 4th are attested, and the 6th being the highest. So the origins of these lower head ranks, classes, and what defines one's statuses as such are obscure and still debated among scholars. So, as the jingle were prohibited with marrying to the lower ranks, though they could take concubines from them, it is possible that one source of the head rank 6 or the children born from the unions between jingle fathers and lower-ranking concubines. So, the strong aristocratic tradition of Silla hindered the southern advance of Buddhism as well. So, kung saan the new faith was readily accepted elsewhere, Buddhist monks met with concerted resistance in Silla until dumating si or naging umupo sa trono si Popong noong 514. So, he overruled the nobles, and in 534, he ordered the construction of the first Buddhist monastery at Gyeongju, the capital of Silla. So, the self-sacrifice of the devout courtier named Ichadon finally gave Popong the upper hand by accepting the execution as the price to be paid for the advocating the introduction of the faith. So, according to the lives of eminent Korean monks, si Ichadon ang nagpredict ng two miracles that would prove the virtue of the Buddha. So, sinabi niya na after the decapitation, his head would fly up the mountain top and his blood would shoot up like milk 100 meters in the air. So, sabi naman ng mga legends, they say that these events were accompanied by an earthquake and darkened sky which caused the overruled nobles to embrace the new religion. So, it was during this period that many Korean monks visited China in search of instruction of Buddhist monasteries. So, isa na nga dito ay si Wonhyo. So, Wonhyo was sidetracked on his way there. So, isang gabi, he took shelter in what he thought was a cave and drank from a cup he found there. So, at daybreak naman, he was horrified to discover his bed was a tomb and his cup a skull. So, first, Nasaya, then enlightenment overwhelmed him. So, as did Nagarjuna, the profound Indian exponent of Buddhism, Wanya suddenly appreciated that nothing was it seemed to be, a realization that saved him the bother of going on to the China. So, samantala yung anak naman ni Wonhyo ay he rejected the Buddhism in favor of Confucianism that increased influence in Silla brought about the introduction of examinations of official posts. So, after 788 candidates were graded according to their proficiency in reading the Chinese classics. So, dahil nga sa admission to the higher study, it was still restricted to the aristocracy, and this innovation failed to undermine the Korean preference for hereditary privilege. So, it was an irony that the bone rank monopoly brought about the downfall of the Silla nobility. So, dahil ito sa pag-block ng mga all avenues of political advancement na nag-force sa mga pamilya sa society ng Silla to look elsewhere for opportunities. And also, trade has developed with China and Japan, specifically in the Shandong province that were permanent settlements with Korean magistrates and temples, while on the islands of Tsushima, the Japanese employed extra Korean interpreters. While foreign trade had been carried on previously by official missions, but this gave way to private enterprise with the result that wealth and ultimately power shifted away from the capital at Gwangju towards commercial centuries in outlying places. So, isa dito is si Kaisong, to the north of modern Seoul, the home of the grandfather of Wang Kon, na founder naman ng Koryo dynasty. So, the loosening of ties between the provinces and the capital ay nagbigay daan sa mga local officials na to collect forces at palibayan yung kanilang mga residencies. So, kontrolado din nila yung ang karamihan sa mga kanayon at ginawang imposible ng mga lekta ng buwis mula sa mga magsasaka, sa mga mahihirap. So, the reduction of the revenue provoked a determined effort by the government na nagresulta lamang sa mga pag-aalsa. So, ang mga unang pag-aalsa ay hindi napigilan ng forces ng Silla at insurgent bands combined into large forces may kakayahang humawak ng malalawak na teritoryo once their leaders arose to direct their energy. So, noong 927, ang isa sa kanila ay may sapat na lakas to sack Gyeongju and execute the Silla king and carry off the royal treasury. So, the ultimate victor was Wang Kun. His familiarity with international commerce and his proven abilities as a general seemed to offer Korea the best chance of lasting unity. So, but not until the accession of the fourth Koryo king Gwangjong in 949, with stability returned sa peninsula. So, these rulers struck at the power held by the military commanders, magitan ng pagbabala sa mga inilipin dahil sa poverty and war. Nagtalaga din ng mga officials na walang kaugnayan sa makapangyarihang pamilya at maging yung mga scholar from the China na wala namang base ng kapangyarihan sa Korea. And also, ginawang regular naman yung sistema na pagbibigay ng lupa sa mga official bilang mga stipend upang ang mga ari-arian na ito ay bumalik sa states once na namatay sila. So, as soon as the bone rankers dared to show their displeasure at these reforms, papatayin sila ni Gwangjong ng walang pag-aalinlangan. So, after this determined king's death, after mamatay ni Gwangjong, isa namang aristocratic order ay unti-unting nabuo under the ministry of Cho Sung-no. So, si Cho Sung-no, isa siyang scholar na naniniwala sa powerful central administration kesa sa but not a powerful monarch. So, sinabi ni Cho Sung-no kay Haring Songjong na hindi niya kayang baliwalain yung contribution na ginawa ng mga mahardika sa lipunang sa Korean society, bagamat nagawa ng Koryo Dynasty na pigilan ang age-old tendency ng Korea na mahati-hati sa antagonistic regions. Hindi nito nagawang magpataw ng ganap na estilong Chinese na administration sa isang nagkakaisang bansa. So, nabawi ng makapangyarihang mga pamilya ang mga lupain na nawala sa kanila sa ilalim ni Gwangjong, and also they were quick to acquire slaves. Extended a quarter of the peninsula's population was soon tied to this status, a situation without parallel in medieval East Asia. So, noong 1136th century, isang hamon naman ang lumitaw from the unexpected quarter ng ang isang rebellion na pinamumuna ng Buddhist monk na si Myeokbong had to be crushed. Having gained ascendancy at court by means of his skills in divination, Myeokbong tried to move the capital away from the Kaesong so that he could seize the reins of power para sa kanyang sarili. So, sa pangangatwiran na ang dynasty ay muling pasiglahin sa pamamagitan ng pagbabago ng location, ang hari ay halos makumbinsin na ang pagtanggal ng hukuman ay kinakailangan until the Confucianist minister Kim Pu-sik moved against Myeokbong's conspiracy. While Buddhism was soon to be put firmly in its place by the military dictator Cho Chung-hon noong 1196th century ay direktang kontrolado ang gwardya ng palasyo at naglagay ng sarili niyang mga unit si Cho Chung-hon malapit sa Kaesong. Sa sumunod na 16 na taon ay pinatalsik niya naman ang dalawang hari at inilagay ang 4 na iba pa sa trono. So, Cho Chung-hon even dismissed civil officials and expelled Buddhist monks from the capital. So, ayon sa isang chronicler, sinalaysay na nito kung paano nagpasya si Cho Chung-hon sa lahat ng usapin ng buhay at kamatayan, and also sa lahat ng desisyong ginawa sa government. So, sabi dito, the king stood above his subjects, holding only an empty authority. We are told, alas, he was nothing but a puppet. So, tinutukan dito na si Cho Chung-hon ay isang authority na parang puppet. So, by crushing armed monks gamit ang persang militar ay inalis si Chao Chung-hon, ang isa sa mga complicating factors sa politika ng Korea. The Buddhist clergy had acquired considerable influence sa pamamagitan ng mga hindi legitimate na mga prinsipe na naging monk, and then maintaining a close relationship with the court. So, after the Mongols took over control of Korea and squandered its resources on abortive seaborne assaults on the Japan, the peninsula sank into abject poverty. The national renewal had to await the establishment of the Yi, Korea's last dynasty, which would rule from 1392 until 19th century, when Japan annexed Korea to its empire. So, the dynastic change was welcomed in China dahil sa matibay na paninindigan ng Confucian na si Yi Songyi, na unang pinuno ng Yi Dynasty na naluklok sa trono tulad ni Wang Kon ng kanyang mga rebelding mga taga-suporta. So, in 1394, Yi Songyi moved his court to a new capital at Hansong, the site of modern Seoul, a name in the Silla dialect meaning the chief city. Its city walls were built in 6 months by 200,000 conscript laborers. Then, sa sumunod na 4 na taon, Yi Songyi lived in a splendid palace until illness and conflict over the succession led to his retirement sa Buddhist monastery. So, ang mga pag-aaway sa pagitan ng mga anak ni Yi Songyi ay nagpapahiwatig ng masama para sa kanilang sa Yi Dynasty, kung hindi lang dahil sa pagpigil na ginawa ng mga Confucian ministers. The Yi Dynasty survived and during King Sejong's reign from 1418 to 1450. Dito naka-experience ang Korea ng a most brilliant cultural era. Then, dito rin itinatag ni King Sejong ang Hall of Worthies, na nagtalaga ng mga natatanging scholar dito at pinag-aralan sila ng yung mga sinaulang batas at institusyon ng mga Chinese. So, one result of their work was a 6-volume codification of Korean law. But, yung greatest cultural contribution ni King Sejong ay yung official adoption ng Hangul, the 28-letter script used ever since for the Korean language. So, Hangul is alphabetic system used for writing sa Korean language. The system known as Chosun Muncha in North Korea, na consists of 24 letters, which originally 28 siya, including 14 consonants and 10 vowels. So, the consonant characters are formed with curved or angled lines. The vowels are composed of vertical or horizontal straight lines, together with short lines on either side of the main line. So, yung development ng Hangul alphabet ay traditionally ascribed kay King Sejong, the 4th king of the Joseon or the Yi Dynasty. So, the system was made the official writing system for the Korean language in 1446 by one of King Sejong's decrees. So, dito din, nung una, yung Hangul ay ginamit para sa pagsasali ng mga text from the mga Chinese text. So, hindi nagtagal ay nagbigay daan din ito para sa mga Koreans na magsulat sa at mapag-aralin yung kanilang sariling wika. Then, sa kasamaang palad, ang pagkamatay ni Haring Sejong ay sinundan ng functionalism at court and weakness in government that could have cost Korea dearly a century later. Then, after ng pagkamatay ni King Sejong, inutusan ng warlord ng Hapon na si Toyotomi Hideyoshi ang Seoul na sumali sa isang pag-atake sa China or else magdusa sila mismo sa pananakop nito. Unwillingly to oblige, nagdusa ang Korea sa loob ng 5 taon habang sinubukan ng mga puwersang Hapones na sakupin yung peninsula. Then, Chinese forces sent to reinforce Korean resistance, but Hideyoshi's plans ay nadipit siya hindi sa land but at the sea. In the Korean Admiral Yi Sun-sin, Japan encountered a naval genius. So, kung saan na naglagay or nagdagdag sila ng bakal na plato or tinatawag na iron plate sa kanilang barko. Kasama yung previously line na dati ng binuo ng mga Chinese at nagpulubog ng sunod-sunod na barko ng mga Hapones. So, dito din, marami sa mga Japanese leader na naroroon do sa mga lumubog na barko ay nilunod ang kanilang mga sarili dahil nga sa pagtalon sa dagat na suot nila yung kanilang full armor. At yung iba naman ay pinatay ang kanilang mga sarili gamit ang kanilang sariling espada. So, noong 1598, ang huling mananakop ng Japan ay umalis sa Korea, though mortally wounded by a stray bullet. Yi Sun-sin ordered this condition to be kept as a secret until the final naval engagement at Noryang sent every Japanese vessel to the bottom. So, hindi naging biro yung effect ng ginawang intervention ng Japanese. It was dreadful. So, ang systematic kong pagsira ng mga bayan and villages ng mga Japanese conquerors, coupled with the denial of succor by the defenders, left the peninsula in an exhausted condition that was difficult to alleviate. Ang pagbawi ay naging mas mahirap sa pamamagitan ng isa pang mabangis na pagsalakay mula sa Hilaga, which is ang attack ng Manchu noong 1627. Ang balanse ng kapangyarihan sa mainland East Asia ay hindi mababawi through sa pagkatalo ng pinuno ng Manchu na si Nurhaci sa Chinese garrison na ngayon ay tinatawag ng Liaodong province. Afterwards, it was easy for the Manchus to subdue Korea. A Chinese chronicle laments. Sabi niya, and end its faithfulness to the Son of Heaven. Unknown at the time was how a later Manchu conquest of China would make the Yi kings subordinate once again to the Son of Heaven, albeit not a Chinese one. It forms part of the next chapter. So, dito ay narinig at sana'y naunawaan natin lahat yung mga concept, especially the important events and the persons, especially yung mga hari, mga monarchs, the importance of geographical location and the vital role of religion and social systems, also the writing system ng particular society like the Korea in the medieval age or era. So, it's the end of this video and thank you for watching.